We were notified this morning at around 10:45 of patients coming in from Stagecoach. We've had multiple victims, triaged them. They're all either in surgery or triaged to a bed in the burn unit on our med-surg, our ICU.
Well, information's still coming in, but we believe that there was some type of boating accident out there on that lake. Being second responders, if you will, receiving these patients, we don't know all the particulars. With this type of drill, I mean, we want to kind of tax the system, try to figure out where our strong points are, where our weak points are, identify any shortcomings. Of course, you know, accentuate the things that we are doing well. Try to get people to understand really what is involved, not just the public, but what our employees should expect in situations like this. And it's nice to work with the Guard and some of our other responders just to make sure that you know, we're all on the same page. And you know, a lot of times we're doing this in response to something that we've identified in the past. We want to make sure we've improved on it.
Go ahead.
We really want to test our communication between the units, and so far today we've had great communication.
Well, we've had, you know, I've mentioned the Guard, I've mentioned some of our outstanding transport teams at the rural communities, but we've actually reached out to some of our suppliers, how they would handle an event such as this. We've reached out to our partners, our sister hospital across town, Nebraska Heart, on what type of help that they would be when we would face a scenario like this. And then we've reached out to all of our employees to make sure that they would understand how to respond, maybe not immediately, but maybe within an hour or two of an event such as this. So and of course our sister hospitals in Omaha, because we're going to something such as this, depending on the size and scope, we're going to have to rely on a lot of people.
A+, really. I think the communication is the biggest key. That was the one thing we were really focused on, to make sure we could get everything triaged in time, be very quick with our response, and the communication between all of the units has been went very well on our end.
Yeah, we experienced a lot of creative thinking, a lot of critical thinking, and you know, hats off to our leaders that were in the hospital that actually participated on the front line. We're co-incident commanders there, so we have worn that hat in numerous events throughout our stay here. We've had training at the state and national level.
Thank you.
We're trained to do multiple duties. If Stacy was here and I was here and we didn't have a counterpart who needed to do another duty, we can step in and out however we need, however we need to fit into the system. So, when it first starts off, we really don't know that there is an issue. It comes in from somewhere outside, whether it's Airport Authority, maybe the National Guard, maybe Lincoln Fire and Rescue, maybe even a rural unit. I mean, I've been, and Stacy has too. We've had experience where this type of thing was implemented, like maybe a bus rollover, something like that. So once the call comes in from the outside, usually to the hospital, our hospital administrator that's on call takes that call, and she or he makes that decision to activate this process. Calls in basically every man on deck. We all respond. We divvy up responsibilities. You know, things may change as things go on, and we just work it from then on out. We just try to figure out what resources are needed, who needs to be called, what needs to be done, and just follow it through.
So as soon as we receive a call, of a mass casualty like this, one of our biggest concerns would be, of course, just human resource, and as well as supplies. We want to make sure that we have enough supplies for the type of injuries. So that's why it's so important we have early communication from the scene. And in this case we did. So we were able to contact our supplier, who, they give us an estimated time of arrival with additional supplies. We can make sure that we're ready with OR. We make sure we're ready in radiology. All of those things happen. So as soon as we get that initial call, we've activated, and then we can deploy from the Incident Command Center. Anytime we have an incident like this, if there's jet fuel, if there's boating fuel, anytime that there may be a contamination, we will put them through our decon unit. And at St. Elizabeth, it's always ready right off the ambulance bay, so we can decon before we would potentially contaminate anything else within the hospital.
The exercise kind of stimulated out of the flood response we had earlier in this year when Nebraska Task Force 1, Nebraska National Guard, Nebraska Emergency Management all kind of came together in a collaborative effort. And through some of our after action reports, we kind of identified there were some, wouldn't say deficiencies, but areas for improvement. So we were trying to incorporate that into today's exercise, where we included some of the local responders, like when we were out at Hickman and Stagecoach Lake. We were able to then exercise the communication piece that was through the Nebraska National Guard and the hospital system back to the State Emergency Operations Center. And a lot of coordination of efforts like we would do in any catastrophic event that affects the state is the ability to get all of the correct agencies onto one roof, singing from that common operating platform or same sheet of music, so that we can have an effective response. So supplying the task force personnel, marrying up with the Nebraska National Guard personnel to kind of be a force multiplier and join forces to go out and then mitigate whatever circumstance that comes up. And then being able to just cross-pollinate with local authorities that are having the issue. In this case, in today's exercise, we chose Hickman Fire Department with an event out at Stagecoach Lake. And then ultimately closing the loop on that of where when we have victims that need transport and moved, and incorporating St. Elizabeth Hospital into the mix to kind of close off that. So
some of the capabilities that we were able to collaborate and bring together from the lessons learned from the floods in the spring was Task Force 1 having the swift water rescue capability, military, Nebraska Guard having the aviation hoist capability, and bringing that together to provide the best response for Nebraska. This here is something we want to take forward in any kind of response, whether it's tornadoes, whether it's ice storms, working with our civilian agencies, instilling that communication capability so when disaster happens, our response is more rapid. DOMOPS, domestic operation military support is what we refer to as DOMS, and it's helping our fellow Nebraskans, other states in time of need during a man-made or weather disaster.
I think we've kind of, and I'll use the analogy crawl, walk, run mentality. I think this, although it seems very grand scale event with all the moving pieces and stuff, was kind of the crawl piece of it. So we were able to sit within the State Emergency Operations Center, marry folks so that we have depth in positions and some succession planning. And so we have more seamless transition when long events happen within the state. So the ability for us to kind of crawl through the scenario, allow our folks to get comfortable, the civilians working on the military side and vice versa, and kind of speaking the same language and answering a lot of questions is kind of, I think, been an outstanding part of this exercise from our perspective. Just even the communication piece, being able to talk from a military aircraft to a civilian hospital. So I think as we kind of build on our capabilities for the state of Nebraska, this tiny exercise today offered a great platform to identify areas for improvement, things we may have overlooked or not thought about as we do that, so that in the end we have an outstanding product that just benefits everybody.
So every disaster happens at the local level. So the floods in the spring have also given all of our emergency managers across the state an opportunity to identify gaps either in their plans or in their response capabilities, and they've pushed those up to the state level, and this is one of those opportunities we're able to go out and test how we would handle some of those situations to better improve upon it if something happens again. We do also have another military with our civilian agencies large exercise, which is statewide, that's happening in May. It's called Vigilant Guard, and there's 4 different locations that we're going to be exercising across the state to continue to test on not only search and rescue and our medical piece that we are today, but some other things like sea burning, security capabilities, things like that.